As we understood database operations at higher level, let us understand how CRUD operations are performed for data engineering using Python. Don't worry if you do not understand the example completely. By the end of the course, you are supposed to gain fair amount of expertise related to data engineering using Python as programming language. Here are the high-level steps to connect to database and perform CRUD operations for data engineering applications. We have to make sure to install database drivers such as psycopg2 using pip. Psycopg2 is one of the popular Postgres related database driver. Once it is installed, we need to import psycopg2 and connect to database. We can insert one record at a time or list of records at a time. After inserting the records, we need to make sure to commit. When it comes to data engineering applications, we have to insert multiple records at a time, which is also called as batch inserts. Also, to just validate whether the data is loaded properly or not, we'll get data from table into the result set. We'll iterate through the result set and print. Once all the database operations are performed, we'll make sure to close the database connection. Before getting into the steps highlighted here, let's clean up the users table because we have created earlier and we have populated the table with some data. To keep it clean, I'm just using the earlier approach where I'm using %SQL magic command to truncate the table. Once the table is truncated, let me actually first install psycopg2, then we will actually take it further. So in this case, this is the command which you can use to install psycopg2. As it is already installed, it is just throwing this message. You have to import as part of your Python code. You can run this command to get the help. If you are using Python CLI directly, you can use help of psycopg2.connect to get the details. You can see that you can pass the database related information using these properties, DB name or database to pass the database name, user for username, password for password, host for host, port for port. Let me create the user object. It is of type tuple and it has 5 elements: first name, last name, email ID, user role and created date. This is the query. This is how the query string will look like. You have to specify all the columns as part of the circular brackets, and for each and every column as part of values clause in circular brackets, you have to set %s like this. As we have 5 columns here, I have %ss5 here. Now we should be able to create the connection with Postgres database by passing host, port, database name, username and password like this. Then we should be able to create a cursor. So we have to establish the connection to the database. We have to create a cursor using the connection. Then we can use cursor.execute by passing the query string. So this query is nothing but query string. And then the data. Here we are trying to insert only one record, which is nothing but user here. Once we run this, it will take care of inserting one record into the database using Python code. To validate, I'm using %SQL magic command to select from users. And you can see that there are no records here. The reason why there are no records is because when we use Python, especially with psycopg2, by default, the transactions are not committed. Even though the query is executed, it is not persisted into the database. To commit into the database, you have to just run this connection.commit. Now it will take care of persisting that one record into the database permanently. Now if you run this select star from users, you should be able to see the record. You can also insert many records in one shot. In this case, I am creating a object called as users with 4 elements in it. Users is of type list and it has 4 elements. Each element is of type tuple. So any object which is there as part of the circular brackets is of type tuple. Any object which is part of square brackets like this is called as list. So this list object have 4 tuples. The query string doesn't change significantly from the earlier one. As we are trying to insert only 4 columns for each record, we have only 4 columns as part of the columns clause here, and also as part of the values clause we have only 4 %s here. Now I can run this. To insert many records in one shot using the list users, I just have to use execute many instead of execute. Earlier I have used execute to insert one record. Now I am using execute many to insert many records in one shot. I can run this and then I can commit and then I can run select star from users to get the data from the database. However, if you want to use Python code to query the data from the database, you can create the query string like this. So users query is the query string which have select star from users. Cursor.execute of users query will take care of executing the query for us, and it will create a cursor pointing to the results in the memory. You can iterate through the cursor like this and you should be able to print the user, and you should be able to see each and every record as a tuple with all the elements in it. For dates and timestamps, it automatically converted into Python date and timestamp. That's why you are seeing date as like this and timestamp like this. Once we are done with all the database operations, we need to ensure that the cursor and connection are closed by running these pieces of code. This is how we typically perform database related operations as part of the data engineering applications. This is a very simplified example. We have to take care of a lot more complex transformations before loading into the data. We will get into those details as part of the database programming modules after going to the collections in detail at a later point in time.